Welcome to ReelTime Talks. I am very blessed to have Terry and John Morse with us. They are from the Big Bend Wildlife Sanctuary in Alabama, Enterprise, Alabama. But actually, you guys started out in Florida. Tell me a little bit about that.
Big Bend Wildlife was established by Betsy Knight, and her desire was to have black bears. A lot of black bear were being hit by cars and everything like that. The rehabilitation was accomplished, and then they would go to zoos. Well, she said, no, we need to get them back into the wild because there are limited numbers, and that's the right thing to do. So she designed a program. Wildlife rehabilitation is designed in theory on protocols. You start with day one and then to the date that you're going to release. There's ways of getting things accomplished and making less errors while you're going through. The better you follow a program or a policy, the more success you have. When you start talking about wildlife rehabilitation, nobody gets paid for doing this. So your dollar has to be stretched to $1.30 because you cannot afford to waste any. So by following protocols, your dollar goes further. That's what she wanted, and that's what she established. Right. Betsy was getting older in age, and she asked for some help, and we helped her. We learned a lot. We learned a lot from a person that had protocols, had ideas, but they had to be done a certain way. Kind of like when we're teaching our kids, you have to do it, but you're going to do it Dad's way or Mom's way because it's been tried and proven that it's working, okay? So that's what we learned from her, and it was very important that we were established our wildlife rehabilitation as what she wanted because it's a tried and proven area. It was beautifully set up. Unfortunately, as her age got, she was on her deathbed and asked, please don't let Big Bend Wildlife Sanctuary go away. We said we would not do that. There was over 1,000 wildlife rehabilitators in the state of Florida. We said, all right, her son wanted the property but wasn't really backing wildlife rehabilitation. We said if we moved it up to Alabama, there's about 100 to 200 wildlife rehabilitators. There's a need for it up there. Her family was up there. We decided to have it moved up there and make it just a little bit easier for us and spend with family. When we got up there, yes, there was 100 wildlife rehabilitators, but there was no program. There was no policies, no procedures, no protocols. And so we asked, can we establish something? Can we help you get things done a little bit more efficiently? We were not accepted real well, but yes, we asked the right questions, and they just didn't have answers. So they had to go to Montgomery, which is the powerhouse of wildlife rehabilitation. That's the Department of Natural Conservation and Natural Resources. So we went to them, and it was an uphill battle. We were from Florida, where it was a little bit different. We were well accepted or anything, and now we were finding that it wasn't really a necessity to have wildlife rehabilitators, and really not really wanted to be wildlife rehabilitation in the state.
In Florida, we actually had to have 1,000 hours underneath a wildlife rehabilitator that was permitted to work with them. They had to sign off on all of our things that we did. We had to document everything we did, to include cage cleaning and rescuing animals, to prepping food. We had to document all that when we submitted our applications. We had to show our experience. We had to have 2 letters of references. We had to have a veterinarian that was willing to help us. And it took me about 2 years to get my permit. And at the time I thought, oh my gosh, no wonder nobody can do this. But I appreciated what I had to go through to prove that I was equipped and knowledgeable enough to do what they were asking me to do. But when we got to Alabama, our applications up there are not online. There's no policies online, and there is no question in the entire application asking your experience. But you have to sign off on a lot of things that you have to agree to according to their policy, otherwise no application. And one of those things is you have to agree to let them come into your homes, your cars, your trailers, your storage units, anything, at any point in time, during day or night.
With or
And
without your presence?
Without our presence
Really?
there. Yeah. And we said, well, no, we don't want to do that. You know, you're welcome on our property during business hours or whatever. And, you know, if you give us a heads up and you want to come out and inspect, we'll meet you there and whatever. But we don't want you to go on the property and get hurt because we're liable. And so we asked them, we said, well, we want a waiver that protects us as well. If this is going to happen, they said no, that they would not do that. And so we all had a problem with that because they're taking our constitutional rights away from us. And we had no, what is it called, due process. No due process to go back and try to fix this. So we really appreciate what we had to go through for two and a half years in Florida to get where we got today. And we feel like we do have the knowledge, but we're not perfect. I'm still learning new stuff every day, and we still reach out. There's new research. There's all kinds of things that are out there. So it's a process that's going forward, but not in states like Alabama. It's just coming to a halt.
You know, I can respect so much the fact that you all say that you're always learning, because I found that the people that are the most passionate, the most successful, they never say they know it all.
Yeah.
They're always learning. It's always evolving. And that's what it's about, especially with
Absolutely.
animals, when things get better,
Absolutely.
easier.
A lot of people think that the rehabilitators get money from the state and the feds. We don't get a dime from them. This is all out of pocket. We might get donations, but a person that knows how to rehabilitate isn't going to take the animal and say, well, if I don't get $1 tomorrow, I'll just euthanize it. They're looking at a long-term investment. They're saying it might take us 6 months to get it healthy and get it back in the wild, but we're taking that responsibility. They don't look at it as this is an expense of X amount of dollars. We have to have the dollars to do this. They look at it as, I'm going to have them for X amount of time, and I have enough to do what we need to do to get it back into the wild. That's what a
like John
rehabilitator.
says, they only know how to raise puppies and kittens, and their heart is in it, but ultimately that's a death sentence for that animal.
That's what I wanted you to go into. Elaborate on the imprinting that's done that most people don't know that they're actually doing. Elaborate.
Well, when you've got a baby wild animal, they have to learn to trust you in order to take that bottle or to take the food and everything, and because they have wonderful wild instincts. So it's a matter of learning to trust, and you become their parent. And you have to know as a rehabilitator, when to actually cut that off. When you cut those strings, just like our teenagers and stuff, there comes a point to where they have to learn to forage. They have to learn to climb. They have to learn to go to bed by themselves. They have to learn to hide, type of thing. And those are hard things for us to teach them. So we usually put them with groups. When you've got the public with just one baby, they're going to raise it like that puppy or kitten, and mom and dad and the rest of the family become their family. And they don't know how to survive in the wild because they've always had somebody take care of them. They have no restrictions. They don't have that kind of structure or anything. So when you let them go, they're lost and they will perish, because they need each other.
That's one thing I wanted to ask, and I want to get back into the legislation part of it. But how would you tell someone that baby bird needs to be rescued versus our little mammal? What is the thing that we need to look for to really see if that needs intervention?
Well, the first thing that we ask is the animal bleeding? Okay, does it look like anything's broken? Can it stand? Is it hopping? Is it fluttering? That type of thing. You mentioned a little bird. And little birds, when they leave the nest, they don't fly at first. They actually come down to the ground to learn to forage and learn to hide. Mom teaches them. She'll feed them for a few days, but she's also teaching them to forage and play along on the ground. And they don't know how to hide, so she'll tell them to get in the shrubs at night and hide and be very, very quiet. They don't eat at night or anything like that. And so we ask those kinds of questions first. If a baby just looks weak or whatever, we might try to hydrate it, and then the next day we put it back out and we let mom finish doing what she does best, which is teach them these things. Because teaching them to hide, we don't speak bird, and and things like that, and forage, it's kind of difficult. But That's what we ask, is a lot of questions up front to find out if that animal actually needs intervention. We don't want the public to handle them a lot because it stresses the animals. They're not like our puppies and kittens that, that like to be cuddled and whatever. They're going to hold perfectly still because their moms teach them that if they hold still and don't move, don't make any noise, the predator will walk by or go away. We are predators to them. So our big eyes frighten them. And so we always will tell you that if we think that you need to intervene, like if it's at night for a little bird, we want to protect it for the night, and we're going to try and reunite again in the morning, we're going to ask you to put it in a box that's got air holes in it, and we want it in a dark, very quiet place so it can actually rest and decompress. Because stress is one of the #1 killers for wildlife in captivity. And it's because people just don't understand that petting it and loving on it and cuddling it is not helping that animal, because its mom doesn't do that. It may come and nurse it and then it leaves because they don't want the predators to know that those babies are there.
And I think we were talking earlier about being honest. If somebody does have an animal, a bird, to be honest with the rehabber who's actually going to have to rehab this animal, how long they've had it, because that makes all the difference in the world.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's like going into the doctor's office. The doctor will ask pointed questions to try to find out, okay, where is it? We try to get that same information. We expect the person to be honest. And sometimes it's hard, a person that might have had it for 3 days as compared to saying, I just got it. That 3 days is completely different, because now you're talking about an animal that does need hydration and does need food quickly. And one of the things that a lot of people, when they see an animal, they'll say, we got to feed it. We don't need food, we need water. We live a lot longer on water than we will on food. And so that's the same thing our animals need. Animals need that water. They need hydration. They can live a lot longer, but hydration is important, but yet you can't do it all at once. You have to slowly give it to them. Again, if they tell us 1 day as compared to 3 days, 3 days you're looking at critical. You can't just give them 2 ounces of water and they think it's good. You have to give them 2 ounces of water, but it has to be over a period of time. You can shock them. But, most people, most citizens don't understand that.
And let me stress here that we don't want the public to feed these animals or give them water. There's 2 great examples. One is birds. They have a hole in the back of their tongue, and that hole goes directly to their lungs. That's the first hole that you see in the back of the tongue. And on little birds, you can't see it as much, but a big hawk is easy to see. And we don't want you to drip water in their mouth or anything. So you need to call someone who knows, either a veterinarian or a rehabilitator, and ask us what to do. If we can't get that animal within so many hours or we're going to tell you how to administer fluids in order to help that animal, because you can do more harm by drowning them if you don't know what you're doing. And babies that are weak, if you put milk or anything in their mouth, they can just aspirate on it, and then by the time we get it, it may be too late. And a lot of people do force them to take a bottle and things like that, and a lot of the babies don't make it because people have done more harm. So we don't want the public to feed or give any fluids of any kind. We want you to put it in a dark, quiet place and protect it, and call us, and we'll walk you through from there.
That's great information.
When you asked the question, when a rehabilitator or a person has to be intertwined with their life, we have to be really careful. You can walk up to a baby bird, and if it's hungry, it's going to open its mouth, because they see movement, and when mom comes in, it's movement. Okay, we're just bigger and uglier than their real parents. And so we have to look at it as, okay, when I put something in their mouth, it has to be good for them. People will say, well, I gave them Vienna sausages. And you go, yes, a baby will have ice cream. Your children will have ice cream for every meal if you gave it to them. But we have to be smarter. The parent knows how to feed them. We have to mimic what the parents would do. So just because they open their mouth doesn't mean that they're getting the right stuff. We have to make sure they get the right stuff. As a citizen, they open their mouth, they're going to put anything, bread, crackers, and when we're real dehydrated and we've just run a race, we don't put crackers in our mouth. that little baby bird might just be just on its last, that it's just opening its mouth, and if you put something that dry in it, you pretty much have to, you're killing it. And so, that's why it's so important that the people do not interact with them unless they really know what they're doing. They'll always say they're cute and cuddly. I want it as a pet. You can't have wild animals as pets. They're going to be wild, and they don't make good pets. They're going to be wild, and you're going to have a broken heart because they're going to fly off when you don't want them to fly off. They're going to bite you because that's their natural instinct, and then you're going to want to get rid of them because they bit you, and they're not ready to go back in the wild at that time.
We also want people to know the importance of the truth is if that baby hasn't eaten for 2 or 3 days, then we need to treat it totally different than what we do if mom just dropped it or something happened to mom. All that information is very, very important to us. And we're not the police. We're not the wildlife police to where people have to worry about us reporting them. We need the information that's accurate. Don't be afraid to tell us the truth.
And I think that's incredible. I mean, what you all are giving us, incredible knowledge on how to take care of wildlife. If we do find it, find a rehabber that knows what they're doing. That's
exactly.
number one thing to do
Absolutely.
that. Underground program, can you elaborate a little bit about the underground program?
Well, when you have an agency, a state agency that doesn't encourage or nurture wildlife rehabilitation, people are going to be afraid because they're afraid to ask the wrong question, because they're afraid that maybe they already have an animal, and most agencies won't give them a permit if they already have an animal. It's a process. And so the biggest thing is the people are afraid, they can't afford the caging that is required, or they're just not good at asking the right questions, kind of thing. And so they're going to take that baby themselves and just keep it hidden, and that causes a problem. When you've got an agency like what we have in Alabama, where they don't encourage it or nurture mentorships or any kind of a program that is pro giving second chances, people are afraid to talk to them. They're afraid to share any information, because when you call the state basically tells you that you either leave it there and let nature take its course. All animals have to eat, they say. And the other thing is, or you can kill it. You will not get in trouble if you have an animal killed or euthanized, but you will get in trouble if you keep that animal. And we want to encourage people to be able to have places like us, and we want to encourage them to learn how to become rehabbers like us, because it takes a lot. It takes a village. It really does.
It does. It really does. And first off, thank you for what you all are doing. But tell me your passion. How do we do this? How can we make a change and make a true change? And what you all have been so passionate about in the past 10 years. Tell me.
The best way to do it is be vocal with our leaders. People that have to make policies, people that have to make regulations need to know that the citizens are not happy. The citizens say they want something different. Again, all the people that do the rehabilitation are doing it for free. We're not getting subsidized by the federal government or the state government or even city government. So what you have to do is you just have to be vocal, saying, hey, I do not like how it's being run. I want change. Right now, our country is starting to realize, we're waking up that, you know what, our people that we put in elected positions work for us. They're not out there just on their own, but they have to have the information to be able to do it correctly. And we need to tell them what is right and what is wrong. And I truly believe we're starting to have a citizenship that is starting to get a little bit more aware that they do have a voice, and the voice does matter.
Do you all see this more in Alabama law than like what was in Florida? Because it seemed like Florida had 1,000, and then
Florida has it more together. They have certain areas that are a little bit of a problem in other areas, but we had great inspectors. We had great game wardens that we worked with and everything. They were welcome in our facilities at any point in time, and they are in Alabama. I mean, we've been there. We started in 2012. And we just closed in 2018. And so all that time, the game wardens, we had no issues with the game wardens. They learned that we were there for the animals and that we were not there to create a zoo. We were there our mission was to get that animal back out to the wild, because that's where they belong. They're just not domestic animals, and they shouldn't be. So in Alabama, we're a thorn in their side because we are vocal, but we're not trying to attack them. We're not trying to attack hunting or anything like that. All we want to do is we see that the program needs to be improved so that we don't have these underground or non-permitted rehabbers. We need to give them the skills, the wildlife, the skills, just like we have to do our children, you know, when they go out into the world. One of the things that I want everybody to understand what AWCRS is actually working for. We're not trying to be negative about anything. We just feel like we have a solution to the problem and we need to be heard. And the only way we've been able to feel like we got heard is to go to the conservation advisory boards and have it on public record in the public meeting minutes. But what we have proposed to the Conservation Advisory Board and the Fish and Wildlife Agency is we're proposing that we form a committee that is made up of experienced rehabilitators, experienced wildlife veterinarians, other conservationists that are pro second chances, and understanding that what we do deal with, the majority of the animals that we deal with, have nothing to do with Mother Nature. It has to do with the fact that our dogs, our cats attack, our vehicles hit animals on the side of the road. It's not necessarily the vehicle or the owner's problem, but there's just so much that goes into it. You know, like an animal that gets hit on the side of the road actually is usually because of litter, where the animals are attracted to the litter and then another animal comes in to get that animal. So again, these are accidental things, but there's also some cruelty out there where the animal just deserves a second chance. So we're also trying to write legislation to propose this committee and other things, and we want to form a good, healthy group of wildlife rehabilitators who can mentor and bring in other people and teach other people how to do this properly.
But that would seem like people would want to do that. It seems like legislation would want to be written to be able to support that. I don't understand. So,
well, there is no laws on the books for wildlife. It's right. Policy, and they just write the policies the way that it works for them. And we think that they're inadequate. We know that our rehabilitation process here in Alabama is inadequate for the public. The public needs them. The wildlife rehabilitators that we have had in the past, they do not have time to go out and get these animals. These are animals that are brought into us by the public, and Big Bend alone did over 1,400 animals a year. And that's a broad spectrum of species. But the other rehabbers, you know, maybe not so much, maybe some more, you know. But and some of them just specialize with either just birds or deer or whatever. They don't do everything, and a lot of people don't understand that as well. But with legislation, if we can get that in, and to protect our wildlife and our wildlife rehabilitators and do these programs right, we're an asset.
So if somebody wants to make a difference, what are the steps? How do we move forward with this?
Well, we're trying to approach the agency. I mean, that's where we see the issues are, and we're trying to offer up our help. If they are not interested or don't have time for wildlife rehabilitators, let us be a part of that committee that can take some of that burden off. We already take off thousands of calls every year off of their table, you know, that they would have to deal with. But we don't tell them that they have to let nature take its course or to kill that animal. We're going to take that animal, we're going to fix it, or we're going to reunite it first, you know, to mom or whatever. Did you want to say something?
The part that we have problems with, and how do we get change? Change can only happen if they're willing to have change. How do you get government to change? That is hard. We're now in a spot in our country that we're starting to show, we as citizens are starting to show citizenship is available and it's active. It's not like where we were several years ago where we didn't even get 50% of people to vote for our president. Right. Now we get people that are active and they're saying, I want my voice heard. The government has to be willing to understand that. And how do we get that? We need all people to get their voice heard. The public can get onto their legislators, their senators, or whatever to say, hey, this is what I believe. again, though, that the public has to be active and government has to be active. So the government has to know that maybe we're not doing our job correctly. When you talk to government, a lot of government agencies believe they are in that position for a reason.
Power.
Is it power, or is it yes, you're in there for a reason. Are you supposed to be listening to the people? Yes. That's the problem, where sometimes just because they're in that position doesn't make them right. It does make them that they get to make the decision. But
I
those
agree.
decisions are not always right.
I agree. I feel a passion about educating the public. That is probably my biggest platform for real-time animal rescue, is to be able to bring topics that are going to make a difference, that are going to make permanent change for
That's what we want
wildlife,
to.
for rehabilitation, for sanctuaries that are making a difference. But the only way I see to do that is to educate the public.
Sure.
And that's what I feel like you guys have such an incredible handle on this topic. And that's why I wanted to be able to bring you all to real-time animal rescue, because it needs to be heard. I had no idea when I accidentally called you, Terry, that the wealth of knowledge that you both have, what you could bring to the table and educate the public. So that's why I want you to say what's on your heart, what's your passion, how can we be here to make a difference?
One of the things you might want to listen to is that almost every one of our states makes it illegal, the only law that's on the book, to have wild animals in your captivity, your possession. They do that. Now, if they really want to think, as a citizen, think about how much power that is, and they can abuse that power.
Absolutely.
Next thing they say is a parrot is a wild animal.
And they're
How
trying to do that.
far are they going to take your rights to their desire, not your desire, but their desire, to where they can control everything? And I think we have to look at it as, right now it's only wild animals, but how do you define wild animals? So could they say that you're no longer going to have that monkey that you have that's under your care, and you got it legally? All it takes is them saying, nope, that's a wild animal, you can't have that anymore.
So what would you recommend people doing in the States, obviously in Alabama? You said reach out to our senators, reach out to the government, reach out to, how do we do that?
That's the hard part.
Yeah.
You have to know who sits in your area and who's your representative.
So emails?
Emails,
Okay,
Emails,
you're going to have
calls.
to do Google searches. You're going to have to do all this, and
Not all of the emails are actually available. They don't want there's
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
that's wrong. That's wrong. But what we try to do is we try to come up with a solution to fix the problem. I mean, we don't want to go in there and just complain about everything that's happening. We just feel like it's inadequate, and we know that it can be done better. It's done better in other states, and it's done, in different ways. We just want to be a part of that solution.
Is there a phone number or something that someone could reach out to you all and ask a question if they have a question?
Yes, we have 334-447-8111. 334-447-8111. That's an emergency number, and it will roll over to our cell phone, so they can call it.
And we'll talk
and
to them.
The biggest thing is that reach out to wildlife rehabilitators and tell them. The state doesn't really believe, when you get a person that says, okay, we got 14 phone calls. Trust is a two-way street. If they trust us with the animals, why can't you trust us telling you that the citizens want us to be able to have these animals? They want to have wildlife rehabilitators taking care of these animals and getting them back into the wild area that they belong.
We keep getting
If you-
challenged with proving that this happens. And some of it, we have been told under confidentiality. And all we can do is ask that person to reach out to them. But a lot of times they're afraid, because they don't want to be tagged, their name and stuff. It's the fear. And we want to break that fear. We do. We want to break that fear. We want the communication. And we shouldn't have to prove it. I mean, what have we got to lose by telling you this? I mean, again, we're not complaining so much as we are trying to offer a solution.
And I think that's what this is all about.
Yep.
I can't
absolutely.
thank you enough for sharing your vision and what you want to make the change, because obviously you all our powerhouse in this topic, and I thank you.
Well, thank you. We
Thank you.
appreciate it.
There's ways of doing this and doing it right, and then we can look at ourselves and say we are conservationists.
I
We
like that.
are doing the job what we should be doing.
And
I
again,
like
that information needs to be truthful, and they need to update their output of information, because a lot of it's old wives' tales, a lot of it's old information. There's a lot of new research that's out there that they're not sharing with the public. You know, coyotes is a good example. Disease is another example. There's just a lot of things out there that is so controlled that we need to be able to make these decisions with them.
Well, thank you. All I can say is thank you. I'm in awe. Getting a chance to meet you, sit down and talk to you, I truly
Well, we
appreciate it.
the time too,
we
Krista.
appreciate-
We
yeah.
really
Thank
do.
you. And I'm believing you're going to make a huge change in Alabama. I believe it. Your passion speaks loudly. Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us on ReelTime Talks. Until next time, Terry and John Morris, thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.